After paying for the elderly woman's groceries at the market checkout, she approached me carefully and whispered, barely moving her lips, "When your husband leaves tonight, don't touch the snow in the yard." I smiled without understanding, assuming it was just another strange superstition, one of those things very old people collect the way others collect buttons in a rusty tin. Still, I nodded politely. I didn't argue. I didn't laugh. I simply agreed. That night, Vernon really did leave. He said he needed to take care of something urgent, vague words I had long since learned not to question. After 32 years of marriage, we survived more on silence than on conversation. He complained about the snow piled up at the entrance to the garage and ordered, as always, "Tomorrow morning, clean it all up. I don't want any trouble." I didn't clean it. The next morning, when I stepped onto the porch, I froze. The yard was covered in a thick, untouched layer of snow, white, smooth, almost too beautiful to be real, except for one thing that made my stomach drop: deep, heavy boot prints. They came from the side gate, circled the entire house, and stopped beneath each window as if someone had stood there for long seconds, watching, evaluating. They weren't Vernon's. The shock was so intense I had to sit down. The cold cut through my thin robe, but I barely felt it. My heart was pounding too loudly, as if it were trying to escape my chest. That was the moment everything came rushing back to me, like a film rewound too fast. I was standing in line at the small neighborhood market, clutching my worn handbag against my chest. Outside, a snowstorm battered the streets. December had been especially cruel that year, the kind of cold that sinks into your bones and refuses to leave. At 58, you stop chasing deals in giant supermarkets and start going to the little market close to home, where the employees know your name, ask about your health, and comment on the weather as if it were a silent pact for survival. In front of me, an elderly woman, bent beneath a faded shawl, spread coins across the counter with trembling fingers. Her hands were red, swollen from the cold. Her purchases were few: a loaf of bread, a carton of milk, 3 potatoes, and a small onion. "You're $1 short," said the cashier, Candace, with visible exhaustion in her eyes. There was no cruelty in her voice, only weariness. "What do you mean, dear?" the old woman murmured, confused. I counted everything at home." She began recounting the coins, one by one, even more nervously. People behind us sighed. Someone muttered something about wasting time. The cold outside seemed to worsen everyone's mood. I looked at that simple scene, and something inside me broke. Maybe because I had spent my entire life swallowing small injustices. Maybe because, for a brief moment, I saw a possible future version of myself. How many times had I walked past someone else's pain, pretending not to see? "Candace, ring it all up with mine," I said before I could think too much. I placed a bill on the counter. "I'll pay." The woman slowly lifted her eyes. They weren't tired eyes. They were deep, clear, far too alert for someone who could barely hold on to coins. There was something ancient in them, something that made me shiver without knowing why. "Your kindness will not be forgotten," she said, her voice firm, unexpectedly so. "It will come back to you." Then she gripped my coat with surprising strength for someone so frail and whispered, "When your husband leaves tonight, don't touch the snow. Promise me." I promised. I thought she was just another lonely old woman, lost in superstitions, perhaps confusing fear with reality. But now, standing before those footprints, I understood. I closed the porch door and called the police with trembling hands. They arrived quickly, took photos, measured the prints, asked questions I didn't know how to answer. By late afternoon, the truth began to surface like something filthy rising to the top. A real estate appraiser had been there the night before, at Vernon's request. My husband had forged my signature, used a fake power of attorney. He was planning to sell the house I had lived in for over 30 years, while I slept, while I trusted him. The house where I raised my children, where I buried my dog in the backyard, where I painted the walls blue against his wishes, where I cried alone on more nights than I can count. The deal was about to be finalized. 2 days later, I would have woken up without a floor beneath my feet, without walls, without a past. When confronted, Vernon didn't shout. He didn't deny it. He simply sat at the kitchen table, defeated, and confessed everything. Gambling debts, hidden loans, lies stacked like fragile cards. "I was going to fix it," he said, his voice hollow, "before you noticed." But I did notice, because a stranger chose not to look away. The report moved forward. So did the